This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap. Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen. We are glad you are here. This is season 8. This will be episode number 6 of the Outlap F1 podcast, our 2026 Japanese GP review show. Got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight, and we did not plan the wardrobe, I swear, but but I love the hat. But anyway, how's it been? You recover from the late night or early morning races? These are kind of killer.
Yeah, this one wasn't too bad. Not compared to China. This one I was like, oh, I'm actually pretty comfortable, and I didn't feel the need to try to stay up the rest of the night after it was over. Yes, I'm wearing the Gulf McLaren hat because I think right now it's a little more fashionable to sport McLaren. Red Bull just keeps getting worse and worse, so it's not like I stopped being a fan. It's not like I stopped being a Max fan. I just you gotta give credit where it's due.
Well, we will talk about Max and some of his trials and tribulations over the course of the weekend, and we'll talk about McLaren. And I'll just give you the headline: both cars out of the garage. I actually was texting you at like 11:30 local time. Like, I've never cheered so much for a formation lap before. Yeah, but we made it. But anyway, we'll talk about all that and who actually ended up winning the race in just a little bit. But if you found our show, welcome along. As always, we're glad you're here. You can find us on X, Instagram, sometimes on Discord, Reddit, and of course here on YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all that. If you enjoy what you're hearing and you like what you're seeing, if you want to do what the YouTubers all say, click the like, subscribe, and also give us a comment or two for that algorithm. That will help us come up a little bit better if other people are looking for content like this. You can email us all the time, outlapf1@gmail.com. We'll get your thoughts to us. Outlap F1 Nation, who is now able to be expanding because we have our new support link in there. So thank you so much to our normal supporters, Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, who sent me a wonderful text message earlier today that made me stop and laugh, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, Jonathan Scott, and of course, now Rachel Fleming, who has joined that esteemed list. If you'd like to join that list, you can find our link in our show notes. I made sure it's updated everywhere. It's buymeacoffee.com/outlapf1. You don't have to give much. You don't have to give anything, really. We're just happy you're listening, to be honest with you. But if you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee to keep us awake during these late night races, we would be most appreciative of it. $5. Other than keeping, caffeinated, it would go back into the show in terms of subscriptions, technology, that type of stuff. All right. Well, we will hop into our headlines of the day. Cody, I'll let you go first here. What you got?
All right, I'm pretty sure I've used this headline before in previous races, but it's a good one. We had the good, the bad, and the ugly. A little bit of everything this weekend. The good, we had awesome showcases from Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc, and Lewis Hamilton throughout this race. A second win for Kimi Antonelli, which is fantastic. The bad, some serious super clipping and renewed complaints from the drivers about just how crappy it is to drive these cars. And the ugly, a particularly nasty crash for Ollie Behrman, which has brought back to the forefront the potential dangers of these regulations and the approach speeds we are sometimes seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much spot on. We're going to talk about all of that. We'll talk about the Behrman wreck. We'll talk about what the FIA has already issued a statement about it coming out and what they may be able to do. We're going to do some speculating because I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do, but it definitely seems like they're going to do something. It seems like this has given enough of it's not just a complaint department anymore. It's not just fans. It's now there's a safety thing, and that'll get the FIA's attention more than I think anything else would. When F1 does come back in, unfortunately, it's going to be like 4 weeks' time. When we do come back, I suspect we're going to have some different energy deployment and regulations, things that they've said that they may have to do. I think they're going to have to do because while the racing looked better, certainly for Japan, because normally, I mean, last year, I think we had 2 overtakes. And this year we had significantly more of that. The fact that the drivers can't push in qualifying is to me a big problem. And the safety incident with Behrman was an accident that was just asking to happen. And like I said, so we're going to get into all that in a little bit. But my headline of the day is, and I got to quote Oscar Piastri. This is Kevin Kelly telling me to use this because I thought it was pretty appropriate. We do all right when we get to start. And that's pretty much kind of where we went. Oscar Piastri was the entertainment, I think, of the weekend. A wonderful start and actually put the two Mercedes into some pressure. And have it not been for a really poorly signed safety car, maybe would have pulled off the win. There's a lot of data that suggests he probably would have pulled off the win. So while I'm happy for a P2 because we haven't, hey, we got out of the garage, maybe I should be a little more frustrated because he could have probably won. But anyway, we'll get into all that in just a little bit. But before we do that, we do have to talk about the qualifying, such that it was on Saturday. I think this is our first time where we actually had all 22 cars at least participate in the qualifying. However, that didn't necessarily isn't good consolation to the two Aston Martins who started at the back of the field. P22 is Lance Stroll, and P21, respectively, is Fernando Alonso. Not really a good weekend for them, at least in qualifying. P20 was Valtteri Bottas, P19, Sergio Perez. So the Cadillacs get to say, we are beating someone, but that's about it. P18, despite having some really good form early on this season, that was Ollie Behrman in the Haas. P17 was Alex Albon. P16 was Carlos Sainz. P15 was Franco Colapinto, and P14 was Liam Lawson. P13 was Nico Hulkenberg. P12, Esteban Ocon. P11, this is painful. Not what you would expect for a guy who's won this race 4 times in a row. 4-time pole sitter Max Verstappen does not make it out of Q2. P11 is all he could muster. He is kicked out, ironically enough, by his teammate, not a teammate, but sister teammate in the Racing Bull. That was P10, Arvid Lindblad. P9 is Gabby Bortoleto. P8, Isaac Hadjar. P7, Pierre Gasly. P6 is Lewis Hamilton. P5 was Lando Norris, despite having some icky FP1 and FP3 sessions, manages to get P5. P4 was Charles Leclerc. P3, one of the stars of qualifying, a great lap, but not good enough to make the front row. But that was Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. P2 was George Russell, also a very good lap, considering he had some suspension setup issues that were affecting him in qualifying. But P1, out in front, clear air, at least to start. Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes, a 128.778 the lap time. All right, so Cody, big thoughts here in the qualifying.
Got several. First of all, Max Verstappen and Red Bull continuing to have a bad time, and it seems to be getting worse by the race. Max Verstappen this time out didn't make it to Q3. He got out-qualified by Arvid Lindblad and the sister Racing Bulls team. He got out-qualified by his teammate. So Max Verstappen not having a fun time at all. Kind of as expected, Mercedes on their one-lap pace continuing to be way out in front of everyone else. George Russell still got second place, even though he was having some issues with the car. Kimi Antonelli putting about 3.5 tenths up on Oscar Piastri, who was the next best non-Mercedes car. So yes, they are continuing to be very strong on one-lap pace. As we're going to see when we get into the race, though, when they've got traffic to deal with, their strength is a little questionable. But we'll get into that in a minute. Other things here, Oliver Behrman, who was having some really awesome races in Australia and China, was pretty disappointing here in qualifying. Couldn't even make it into Q2. And like you said before, Alex Albon, I feel really bad for him, man, because he sounded really dejected on the radio, pretty much feeling like he's not going to get a handle on his regs, and people are calling his racing ability or his driving style into question. Yeah, Williams is just really disappointing right now. We all thought that they were going to come into this screaming, considering how much development they put into this car, and it just turns out that was not to be, at least not yet.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that car it's known now. I mean, they're just overweight, and it kills them in the straights, and they can only deploy so much, and they can only use the active arrow so much, and it only does so much. So yeah, I mean, when Alex Albon goes on the radio and says, what's the issue, and he goes, I can tell you, the engineer goes, you're not going to like it, it's in the straight. There's really nothing they can really do about that. But looking in other places, things you can be a little more happy about. I think in terms of the McLaren side of things, at least I was happy about that. Oscar Piastri, another incremental step. We saw 8 tenths in Australia, 6 tenths in China. This is now 3 tenths. Coming to terms with the deployment is something that I've read. They've shed some weight internally, which is also good. Some of the not so good for on the McLaren side is the battery status for Lando Norris, because in FP3 he had yet another battery issue, very similar to the one that kept him out of the race. He's now on battery number 3, which apparently is supposed to last him down to the end of the season. While they think they can salvage battery number 2, more than likely he's going to have some sort of a grid penalty incoming for that. So that's never good. But he did manage to get out for FP3, so that was a bit of a save from the team. They thought maybe he wasn't going to participate at all, so he gets out there, puts it on P5. Not bad. Can't really complain considering that his running was hindered. But I was impressed with Piastri's lap. I mean, we talked about it in China where I thought like McLaren could stay with the Mercedes for about maybe 70-75%. I think it's closer to 85%. So getting there ever so slowly. So I'm enthused by that. Other good performances, you got to hand it to Pierre Gasly. I thought, again, here's an Alpine probably punching a bit above its weight. But yeah, I think on the painful side, you got to look at the Red Bull. Max Verstappen not happy at all with the car right now. Can't seem to find the right setup that's working for him. So, struggling there. And that's a guy who knows how to get around this track. He's obviously done 4 pole positions in a row. He's won this race 4 times in a row. So he usually sings quite well around Japan, and it just was unfortunately not to be. So I think more development needed. And, it's kind of scary because Red Bull did bring some upgrades here. But anyway. All right, so we will leave qualifying where it was. We did mention, or I didn't get a chance to mention, but Charles Leclerc was very unhappy with kind of just the status of the regs. And as a fan watching the qualifying, you could tell where the super clipping was, even though they tried to do the 1 megajoule thing. Going into 130R, going into that last chicane, you could just, the onboards don't lie, man. It just sounded, pretty bad. So, like I said, when we talked about it in the open, the FIA has already made a statement. They're going to do this big energy deployment summit. We're going to talk about some things that they can do to try to mitigate things in the same direction that they're going in. But for now, we will flip over to Sunday, and we will start with, as we are always apt to do with our back markers, 2 non-classified finishers on the day. One, the scary crash. Have to talk about it here for Oliver Bearman. He only makes it 20 laps into the Grand Prix. Big wreck at Spoon. Looked like when he got out of the car, he was obviously limping. Was taken for some x-rays. Those x-rays were negative. It looks like a bruised knee. Not necessarily something that's going to hopefully keep him out of action, but he definitely was impaired limping getting out of the car, as we could see for sure. The other non-classified finisher, only one, Aston Martin. That would be Lance Stroll. He made it all the way to lap 30 before calling it on the day. Team coming on the radio saying they had an issue and needed to retire the car. P20 on the day was Alex Albon. P19 was Valtteri Bottas in the Cadillac. P18, Aston Martin finished the race. They've completed a race distance, probably a lot sooner than a lot of people thought, and not in last place either. So Fernando Alonso brings it home in Honda's home track, but P18 on the day for him. P17 was Sergio Perez. P16, Franco Colapinto, the other participant in the Ollie Bearman wreck. We will talk about that when we wrap up in just a minute here. P15 was Carlos Sainz. P14 was Arvid Lindblad. And P13 was Gabriel Bortoleto. All right, Cody, big thoughts here on the back markers. I assume we're going to talk about Bearman.
Yes, Bearman and the back markers here is pretty much the big story, and it is something that is continuing to be talked about following the race here because of the safety implications. So what happened here is that Oliver Bearman was gaining on Franco Colapinto on track, heading towards Spoon. Colapinto went into this going into like a recharge state well before the turn. And as we've seen with super clipping, when you go into this recharge state, you lose a lot of speed on the car. So Colapinto goes into this recharge state and loses a lot of speed well before the Spoon turn, when normally you would be still going at high speed like Oliver Bearman was. He was going at very high speed. And so he was approaching Colapinto at very high speeds. The things that I've been seeing reported is it's a wide range, but I guess the telemetry shows about a difference of 45 to 50 kilometers per hour difference, which is about 30 miles per hour. That's just, I can tell you, driving down the street at 30 miles an hour, you catch up on things pretty quick. And I don't know if it was instinctual or if Colapinto just didn't know Behrman was there because of how quickly he was coming up on him. But Behrman tries to go around Colapinto on the outside of the little curve right before you start getting into Spoon there. So he would have been on the inside going into Spoon. Colapinto moves over seemingly to make a defensive move, or like I said, just didn't see him and was changing his line to take avoiding action. Oliver Behrman ends up going into the grass, loses control of the car at very high speed, goes straight through Spoon and hits the wall quite hard. As you said, he looked like he was in some amount of pain when he got out of the car. He needed to be helped along by the marshals. It looked like he was limping, took a seat there inside the wall for a few minutes. Fortunately, these, Formula One cars are incredibly, safe and do a great job of protecting the drivers. So even with that high force impact, what I've been seeing is a 50G impact. No broken bones, just a pretty good bruise, I guess. So yeah, he's walking away from this one, and that is amazing to see. However, this could have been potentially even worse had he actually hit Colapinto with that speed difference. It could have been a very, very nasty crash for the two of them, even worse than what we saw. And this goes back to something the drivers have been talking about for a while, is that due to the differences in speed that occur when one driver is deploying energy and another driver is recharging energy, you have these instances where you might be approaching a turn and one driver's deploying, one is recharging, and you get this huge difference in speed. And the back driver approaching another driver at much quicker rate than they would expect to do. So we saw today that this was probably the best case scenario with that instance, that it could be really dangerous. And the drivers have said that it's really dangerous and they want something done about it. And now that we've got the proof in the pudding here, they've brought it back up. And I guess the FIA has released a statement that they might be taking a look at this and what can be done.
Yeah, I mean, I think you summarized it very well. Yeah, it's the scary part would have been what would have happened had they hit, because Behrman is coming at him so much faster. And yes, you have the flashing lights, but you have no way to know that Colapinto is going that slowly. And he's on the racing line. You normally don't see dive bomb type moves going into Spoon like that, into that corner. So I can't really fault Colapinto. And Behrman is coming from so far back that you got to remember, for F1 cars, the mirrors, yeah, they have mirrors, but they're not very functional. They're really kind of there to look like mirrors. Yeah, and more often than not, you got to rely on your team or your engineers, especially during like qualifying, and you're looking for your engineer to tell you where people are on the track so you're not impeding people and all that type of stuff. So it's just one of those worst case scenario type of things that was probably bound to happen, and why we didn't see it coming. Well, a lot of people did see it coming. And we even said it, even going back to testing, was that some of the closing rates looked very, very scary. And unless both drivers were able to do and take corrective action in the right way, you were going to end up with a problem. Here you ended up, look, these are two of the younger drivers. Maybe experience counts a little bit, but I don't really think so. I think it was really just more of a function of Behrman got a super chunk of extra deployment, probably more than he was expecting when he hit the button, which is another problem that we have, is sometimes when you deploy them, you get 1,000 horsepower, and that's not necessarily an easy thing to control. I mean, these are rear wheel drive cars, and the first thing I own one, the first thing it wants to do all the time is go around in circles. That's what they want to do. You have to take some sort of corrective action sometimes to prevent going around in a circle. And it becomes like driving on ice. The tires lose adhesion, and Behrman was going around, and he's lucky he didn't take Colapinto with him into the barrier. As it was, the impact, you don't see the onboard anymore. He went back in first, so that's never good. At least it wasn't head on, so there's some solace there. But yeah, just a very, very, very scary incident. I'm happy to see that he walked away from it. I'm happy to see that, a bruised knee is going to hurt for a while, but it could have been a lot worse. We're not talking about a concussion. We're not talking about head injuries. All the safety mechanisms put in place did their job. But at the same time, this now highlights where I think the problem has been since we've kind of debuted these cars in Australia with the super clipping. They're going to have to do something. So the FIA has released an official statement So since their introduction, the 2026 regulations have been the subject of ongoing discussions between the FIA teams, power unit manufacturers, drivers, and BOM. By design, these regulations include a number of adjustable parameters, particularly in relation to energy management, which allow for optimization based on real-world data. It has been the constant position of all stakeholders that a structured review would take place after the opening phase of the season and to allow for sufficient data to be gathered and analyzed. A number of meetings are therefore scheduled in April, where there now are hole in the schedule to assess the operation of the new regulations and to determine whether any refinements are required. Any potential adjustments, particularly those related to energy management, require careful simulation and detailed analysis. The FIA will continue to work in close and constructive collaboration with all stakeholders to ensure the best possible outcome for the sport, and safety will always remain a core element of the FIA's mission. At this stage, any speculations regarding the nature of potential changes would be premature. Further updates will be communicated in due course. So they were already scheduled to have an energy management summit. They're definitely going to have an energy management summit. I would be shocked if we don't see tweaking to something. Usually when it's safety, that's when the FIA will definitely get involved. I know they're not huge fans of this rule set anyway. So we will, I guess, have to kind of sit back and see what they will do. We will do some speculation on what things they can do, what they might do, but we'll do that in our second segment. All right. So any other thoughts in the back markers other than a lot of these cars that finished, at least they finished, but they all kind of struggled.
Yeah, it was nice that we actually got 20 cars that finished the race this time. So we're getting better in terms of the reliability, at least for this race. But everyone back here pretty well off the pace, and it's pretty much everyone we expected to be back here. We got both Aston Martins, one of which retired. We got both Williams with Cadillacs. Gabriele Bortoleto, did okay in the Audi, I suppose. Arvid Lindblad fell back from his qualifying a little bit. I guess he was having some on-track battles with Isaac Hadjar, and Isaac's radio shows that he was not happy with the way that Arvid Lindblad was racing him. So if you want to hear a lot of a potty mouth, go take a listen to that. It was pretty entertaining. But yeah, pretty much everything from the back markers here really goes into that Oliver Burbank crash.
All right. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. All right. So we will turn our attention to the midfield. P12 is the aforementioned Isaac Hadjar in the Red Bull. P11 was Nico Hulkenberg, just missing out on the points. P10, managing to score a point for Haas, that's significant for them, is Esteban Ocon. P9 was Liam Lawson in the Racing Bulls. P8 was Max Verstappen, getting back into the points after his definitely suboptimal qualifying. P7 was Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. And now we're talking about kind of our top four. So I think it's probably a good place to kind of stop. This is kind of the real midfield because the top six are kind of on their own. So, all right, Cody, big thoughts here kind of in our true midfield here.
The main one for me is that I am really upset that Max Verstappen qualifies as true midfield at this point. It is pretty brutal to see him sitting there behind Pierre Gasly, stuck for pretty much the entire race. At one point, he runs out of energy, and Pierre Gasly makes it by Max Verstappen because Max ran out of deployment. Max gives him a little wave as he's like, "Yep, see ya. You're going to pass me. There's nothing I can do about it." And yeah, I was very frustrated watching the timing for the rest of the race because it was Max Verstappen behind Pierre Gasly by anywhere from 0.3 to 0.7 seconds. So well within the range to use the overtake function. And he just could not get past him. He made one last solid attempt on the very last lap to try to get it done and could not do it. The radio with GP was pretty funny too, because GP is telling him, he's like, "Oh, you've got this much extra on the people that are running in front. You've got this much extra on the McLarens and the Mercedes." And he's like, "Well, yeah, it's easy for you to say, but I'm stuck here behind this Alpine. So there's nothing I can really do about it, can I?" Yeah, it's very painful to see as a fan because, like, I know that this if he really, really ends up hitting the regs in the car that much, that he might be taking a little bit of a hiatus from the sport, and that would make me very sad. But on the flip side of that, Pierre Gasly managed to hold him off for damn well pretty much the whole race, and I think that just goes to show that Pierre Gasly is working wonders in this car. It's kind of hard to tell really where the Alpine sits competitively because you've got Pierre Gasly continuing to be in point scoring positions, whereas Franco Colapinto is really still trying to figure it out. So can't tell if Pierre Gasly is doing really well with the car, perhaps outperforming what it really should be doing, or if Franco Colapinto is just struggling with it. But they are definitely doing better than where they were last year.
Yeah, I reiterate, I think Pierre Gasly's super happy that he never has to drive last year's car ever again. And they've been waiting on getting the Mercedes power unit. They now have the Mercedes power unit. That's another team that in spurts is showing that they are now getting to grips and optimizing that Mercedes power unit. We're kind of seeing the trend of those teams that have it are kind of moving themselves up in the order, which was kind of what we were predicting. When we look back a long time ago, we always said, well, it seemed like you would want to be in the Mercedes power unit at least to start. And that's definitely rang true, I think, for Pierre Gasly early on. But good on him. This is a guy who's trying to really restart his career. I mean, he's been, kind of written off, and it's really important for him to show well and show that he can do things. There's no qualms about it. Alpine are kind of sort of up for sale, or at least a part of that team is up for sale, and they're trying to make themselves attractive to the next highest bidder to come in to hopefully put some good stuff into that team. And you got to be impressed that they're doing more with a lot less. So they don't have as many resources as some of these other teams do. And they've done well, at least to start the season, for sure. All right. Well, we will move into our top six, which was kind of the three teams that contested the race win. And I actually can say contested the race win because this was not a foregone conclusion, even for most of this race. So P6, coming home in P6, it looked like the tires just kind of gave him out at the end. That was Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. P5, finishing where he ended up starting. That was Lando Norris in the McLaren. P4, this was probably the shocker result of the day. George Russell, while starting P2, only manages to come home in P4. And that meant that your podium finishers was P3, Charles Leclerc in the other Ferrari, P2, Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. But it is 2 for 2 in a row. And now leading the championship, the youngest ever to do so at any point in the FIA Formula One World Championship. That is Kimi Antonelli with his second win in a row. You look at the results and you say 13 seconds and you go, well, that looks like, just Mercedes romping away. It may have been true post the safety car, but pre-safety car, we had a bit of a show because the positive, well, you couldn't really say anything about the McLaren starts because they hadn't really started. And so they didn't have a chance to really display that, A, they've actually kind of figured out the start procedure, kind of like the Ferraris have. Maybe not quite as great as the Ferrari starts. I still think the Ferrari starting is the better of it. But at the same time, they managed to get decent start off the line, and Kimi Antonelli didn't. Oscar Piastri at the end of lap 1 leads the Grand Prix. Cody, how'd you see it?
It was very exciting, and I had immediately thoughts of you being like, man, Andy's probably jumping out of his seat here, because the Mercedes, what we're seeing with the Mercedes car is that on one lap pace, it is dominant. In qualifying, we really see that. They are, quarter of a second plus out in front of the next best team in each competitive, qualifying session we've had so far. So Mercedes is really nailing that one lap pace where they get total control over their recharge and their deployment. And you get your complete control over that when you're doing a qualifying lap and when you're running out in front with no one in front of you, and you can do as you've set in your Mercedes car instruction book. But what we are seeing with the Mercedes cars as well is that when they are running behind other cars and they have to change where they're recharging and where they're deploying in the hopes of actually making overtakes, they're struggling just a little bit. Now, they're still the best of the field, in my opinion, but their gap to the next best car is significantly smaller in race trim and in traffic, I would say. And they are definitely, out of the top running cars, they are getting the worst starts off the line because, Antonelli said after the race that he made a personal mistake at the race start. He didn't engage the clutch properly, and that is why he fell from first to sixth after the first, couple turns there. But even still, Russell fell back a couple positions, and that's been what we've seen in every race so far, is that Mercedes cannot hold the lead off the line. And now, other than the Ferraris, they've got the McLarens to contend with, because Oscar Piastri had an awesome start. He's out in the lead. You end up getting some Ferraris in there. Lando Norris got up there for a second and was passed pretty quick by George Russell. But you end up with this interesting dynamic where if Mercedes was out in front, they would run away with it, which is what we've seen happen. And what we ended up seeing in the second half of this race was Antonelli waltzing off with it because he was out in front. But because you had this ground to regain and these cars to pass for the Mercedes, by the time George Russell had fought through the Ferraris of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, he didn't have enough juice to get past Oscar Piastri. And he was not getting past him. In fact, at the end of that first stint, Piastri was starting to open the gap up a little bit more. He got beyond that 1 second threshold where the overtake would be active, and it actually looked like he had a real chance at winning it. He even said so on the radio, pretty much, that if they were able to maintain position through that pit stop sequence, and it was anticipated to be a one-stop race, that he felt he could hold on for the win. And I really thought so as well.
Yeah, I mean, if we had only not had that safety car, what a finish we might have been able to have. But yeah, once safety car happened, it was kind of game over for at least for P1. The P battle was definitely intense. The P5 battle, actually, between Hamilton and Norris got pretty spicy. Especially, near the end there. Hamilton has an off, and Norris comes on the radio and says, maybe he gained an advantage. The steward said, no, thank you. We're not going to bother with that. So, yeah, I mean, but it was, I think, for Japan, which is a track that is generally really, really hard to overtake, I think you saw some pretty decent racing. Yes, we have to deal with this energy deployment situation, but from a chassis side, I think you solved a lot of the problems because you saw cars able to sit at that half-second delta. You hadn't seen that before in a long time in Formula One. I mean, it used to be 2 seconds, and if you tried to breach that barrier, you were not going anywhere. So there are things from this race to be enthused about. Share the sentiment that, yeah, we have to get this deployment situation right, especially in qualifying. It is a shame that a guy who is as good as Charles Leclerc is coming on the radio and says, I have to do the opposite of what my brain tells me to do. It just doesn't make sense. So I do think that, like I said, I'm pretty sure you're going to see a tweak to these rules in the next few weeks. Things that I think they can do. One, I think they have to bin the idea of a 50-50 split. If they get rid of that and they say, okay, we're going to let the ICE do more, the internal combustion do more, that's a step. You can pull back on the battery. Yeah, it would make the car overall slower, but I don't think you'd have this super clipping situation. The other thing you can do is you can actually turn some of the wick up on the battery because they left some in reserve even when they started this. And you can have the charge at a greater rate so that every time you're hitting the brakes, that more is going into the battery. But what the fear was that they didn't want to have batteries popping. Well, we've already seen batteries popping, and we're still here in the super clipping. So, what do you do? Yeah. So those are, I think, a couple of things that they say, I think, are the low hanging fruit. But yeah, I mean, you gotta hope that these engine manufacturers are on board with maybe kind of getting away from what they thought was going to be that 50-50, because I don't think the 50-50 is the way to go.
I mean, you've got Audi and Cadillac in the game at this point. I mean, Cadillac isn't using their engine yet, but you've got Audi in the game with their engine. So I guess now it would be the time to be like, actually, we said we were going to do this to get you in the sport, and we tried, but it sucks. So now we might have to make some tweaks, and you're already here, so you might as well just roll with it. I guess one of the things that I've continued to see and thought about is, it's very strange to me that the Formula One cars are only doing regenerative braking on 2 of the wheels. They do it on 4 wheels in endurance racing, and they don't run into this crap at all. So I don't understand why they couldn't do that here, or why they didn't want to. And you wouldn't be able to really patch that for this year, but it's something you could look at in the future if you wanted to try to, salvage this current setup that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I have a funny feeling you're going to get some patchwork done for the rest of this season. I'm hoping that we can address the safety issue, because that, I think, is paramount. And if we can address the safety issue,
Yes.
like I said, these cars race really well. Like you're seeing the actual racecraft and stuff kind of start to take shape in places that you hadn't necessarily thought you were going to see great racing before. The fact that we had, I think, 2 overtakes last year, and now we had a whole bunch, and Donnybrook at the front for a while, and legit tension throughout that race. It makes me, I'm more enthusiastic about that part of it than I want to be negative, but I understand the negativity, and I get what people are saying about it too. All right. Well, such ends the Japanese Grand Prix. We are going to take a break. We're going to re-rack. We are going to come back, and we are going to get into what this did to the driver standings and the team standings. We're giggling because it's been a night so far in terms of tech issues. We may have to suspend. I'm just going to let you break the fourth wall here. The second segment is probably going to pick up on a separate day from this because we've been at this for a while, and we finally got to the end of the Grand Prix. So we're going to take a break. We're going to re-rack. We're going to try again another time, and we will get you the end of this. We have some great fan emails. We want to get to them. We want to give them the appropriate attention. That's really why we're doing it. So I hope everybody can wait a couple of days for this episode to come out, but that's why we're doing it. So just stay with us. We promise we will get this out as soon as we can. But come on back. You will not want to miss our second segment.
You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
All right. Welcome back on in. This is season 8, episode number 6, second half
Day
of episode
2.
Number 6. Yes. Take 2. We've re-racked. I have reconfigured my entire apartment on what talks to what device and how. I think we're going to be able to get through it. I've been testing it earlier tonight. So this is segment 2 of the Japanese Grand Prix review show. I think I managed to cobble together all the audio for segment 1 so it makes sense. I sure hope it does. But now we're going to talk about what this round did to the driver and the team standings, and then we will open up to the fan email segment because that's really where we want to get to. So, Cody, if you take the drivers, I will handle the teams.
Right. In first place, we have Kimi Antonelli, who stands as the youngest driver ever to lead the Formula One World Drivers' Championship. He's in first place for Mercedes, sitting at 72 points, and just behind him is his teammate George Russell in the other Mercedes car at 63 points. Third place is Charles Leclerc for Ferrari at 49 points. Fourth place, Lewis Hamilton in the other Ferrari at 41 points. They have been fighting very well between the two of them over these last couple of races. Lando Norris coming in fifth place at the moment for McLaren at 25 points. And despite only having one start to his name at the moment this season, Mr. Piastri just behind him in sixth place in the other McLaren at 21 points. So he definitely made a good comeback with this race. Oliver Behrman, despite having a scary crash in this race, he still has those two other strong results from the previous two races. So he is still in seventh place for Haas at 17 points. Pierre Gasly, who has been consistently performing well with Alpine, definitely a far cry from where they were last year. Pierre is in eighth place for Alpine at 15 points. This one hurts me significantly. Verstappen, ninth place, Red Bull Racing, sitting on only 12 points from 3 starts in a sprint race. Ouch. And only 2 points behind him, Liam Lawson in the sister team, Racing Bulls, 10th place at 10 points.
All right, so your team standings after round 3 look like this. Mercedes, obviously, way out in front. They are in P1 with 135 points to their name. A great start, obviously, for them. P2 is Ferrari. They check in with 90 points. So we're already talking about a 45-point gap in the constructor standings. And then Ferrari to P3. McLaren are at least kind of off the deck, kind of as it were. They are now scoring some good points. They're up to 46 points, but they still have a ways to go. If they want to get back in the P1 fight, they got a ways to go if they want to get back in the P2 fight. Fourth place is Haas, maintaining in P4. They check in with 18 points. P5 is Alpine on the strength of Pierre Gasly's good efforts. They check in with 16 points. 6 is Red Bull. They are tied with Alpine. They actually lose on countback, believe it or not, right now. So they check in with 16 points. P7 is Racing Bulls. They are on 14 points. P8 is Audi with 2 points. P9 is Cadillac, who I'm sure they have 0 points, but I'm sure they are thrilled not to be in last place. That is unfortunate.
You skipped for Williams.
Oh, I skipped for Williams again. P9 is Williams. Let's not discount their 2 points. They were well earned. P10, Cadillac, probably happy not to be there. This 11 team thing is just screwing with my vision. I'm so used to the 10. P11, that is Aston Martin. They are bringing up the back of the pack, also on 0 points and the furthest back from countback. Although I would say that this race was progress for them. They got one car across the line, and nobody thought they were going to do that in this first part of the season. All right. Well, you have heard our takes on the Japanese Grand Prix. It is now time to open it up to your takes in the fan email segment. We have some great contributors here. Cody, I'll turn it over to you. What do we got in the fan emails?
First fan email comes in from Rachel Fleming. Thank you, Rachel. And she says, well, that was okay, or at least better than last year. We had 22 cars start the race, and they were all on the grid as well. Kimi did luck out with the safety car. I can see why George was so angry, but F1 is full of luck sometimes. Let's be honest, Max and Lewis did have lots of championship luck throughout the years. I hope Ollie Behrman is okay. Glad to see he's out of the car. He hopefully should be okay for Miami. Massive shout out to Gasly once again for keeping Max behind. This is painful for Max at the moment. I agree 100%. Perez watch finished, and he beat his teammate, so it's not all bad. Alonso watch, by the way, congratulations to Alonso becoming a new father. He finished the race, which is progress for Aston. And Audi watch, Bort keeping the nickname, and Hulk were fighting a Red Bull. Made no difference though, as they got 0 points. And now a long wait until Miami. I am certainly counting down the days, as football is still giving me no joy at the moment. Yeah, I'm going to be counting down the days as well. Fortunately, baseball season just started up here, and I am a big Chicago baseball fan. So I got that to keep me tied over. But I'm not looking forward to how long this break is going to be. At the very least, though, it would be a good opportunity for teams that have struggled here in the beginning of the season to catch up a little bit, bring some upgrades to their cars. And we are anticipating that even though the 2 races that we're missing in the Middle East here are not on the calendar now, they still kind of count toward the first 6 races of the season, after which point the engine performance will be looked at, and teams will be allowed to bring upgrades to their engine in accordance to the regulations based on how far behind they are. Yeah, in these next couple races, we might see some big shifts in team performance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting Miami to kind of look like what we traditionally would say was Spain. Was like, that was always the upgrade capital, was the Spain track. Is Miami a great track to test upgrades? Probably not. But such as the calendar is, you might as well try it here. I think, am I not wrong? Is Miami a sprint weekend again? I want to say it is.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think it sounds right.
If it is, there's additional laps that you're going to run in race conditions with a sprint weekend. So that would be a chance to do it. We've seen some teams have success there. Some teams have not had success trying to bring upgrades to Miami. So it's kind of all over the place. But yeah, I mean, this hole in the schedule just kind of is what it is. But to your points, Rachel, yeah, I mean, I certainly hope Ollie Behrman is going to be okay. It looks like a bruised knee is not a fun injury. It's certainly not an F1 car, but it could have been a lot worse given the 50G impact, the fact that the medical car was deployed, all of that. So thank God the survival cell of these cars is as safe really as it is. If you watched any of the IndyCar over the weekend, there were some crazy wrecks in that weekend too, with McLaughlin doing his best Roman Grosjean impression in front of Roman Grosjean, who was there. So yeah, just all sorts of weird stuff going on across this weekend. Like, it was kind of like these things always seem to happen in threes. There were 2 really bad IndyCar wrecks, and then you had this one. So it kind of, you were kind of waiting for the kind of that third one. And then I think this has unfortunately happened to Behrman here. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you on Gasly. Great to see Cody. I'm sorry, but it's good for him to keep Max behind. I even put a tweet out after qualifying where I said, it kind of sucks to see a guy who's been so good around Japan struggling so bad and so unhappy. And that's legitimate. And I'm not even a huge Max guy. So yeah, as for Alonso watch, yeah, I mean, like he got new baby and finished a race. So there's one thing. And the Audi watch, yeah, I mean, they're a team that is going to have to figure out how to kind of redo itself, because now they have to go back to Mattia Binotto's leadership. They lose Jonathan Wheatley, and hopefully they don't lose a lot of momentum, because it looked like they were building something, and I still think they are. Yeah, I mean, we will figure out how to fill the hole between now and Miami. Cody's a much bigger baseball guy than I am. I mean, I enjoy some baseball every now and again, but I'm not as huge into it. My two big ones are F1 and pro football, so I'm kind of going into the nether regions. But I will find
dark days of your sports fandom.
Yeah, I mean, I will find something to keep me busy. Don't you worry about that. All right, our next one is from Dave Doherty. Cody, what does he got to say?
All right, Dave says, hi, team. That race certainly had everything that totally surprised me. To a ballsy from Oscar lead. Sorry, getting a little tongue-tied here. Surprised me. A ballsy from Oscar to lead the race at the start. You were as surprised as I was, Andy, and Behrman seemed unlucky this weekend in quali and in the race day as well. Our thoughts on that. But it is fair to say that this is Mercedes' year now. Yes, I believe it is fair to say that. And is the Red Bull going to improve? God, I really hope so. That is a question for Cody. And yep, I figured it was. They have to, or else Max might not be a Formula One driver next year. So please, for the love of God, fix your fucking car. I want to make this interesting, since we all got something to say in this race day. Something new from me. Hope you are well. Yep. Thank you, Dave, for your email. It was definitely a pretty ballsy move from Oscar to take the lead of the race at the start. And I'm really happy to see that, because, not being able to even start the first two Grand Prix of the season could have taken all the wind out of his sail and broken all of his confidence for this year. And it looks like he just, as soon as he got the car going, he's right back in very strong form. I hope for his sake that their car continues to get better and that his form continues throughout the entire season. He did have, as we all know, a little bit of a lull in the second half, or last third of last season, that ultimately cost him the championship. So let's hope that he can carry it all the way through. And yeah, it is definitely Mercedes here. Now, I say that with the caveat that we are only through 3 Grand Prix out of what is going to be 22 Grand Prix weekends now. So there's plenty of time for things to change. And while the Mercedes looks pretty invincible in qualifying, we have seen now that if they get cars in front of them, they are not nearly as invincible during race day. So there is still hope. What will break everything is if they come into Miami and they've figured out how to actually get the race starts done, and then they're on pole and taking off from the very beginning. Then it's going to be a very dry rest of the.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is hope. The more I read, kind of now, Dave, to your first question, is this Mercedes year? It's their year to lose, as absolutely right now. I mean, they've come out and they've done everything that they could have possibly done to take advantage of a new rule set and put themselves in the best position. They've had a phenomenal start to the season by any metric you want to look at. That having been said, I don't know that this dominance, depending on how everybody, and this is the great unknown, I think, for this season, is this dominance something that is going to carry through the whole rest of the season? Because we've got two things that I think kind of stand in their way. One, the vertical development that's happening with other cars. And two, we are now with 2 rounds that they're not going to be able to score and probably not get maximum points in. It brings that compression ratio rule a little bit closer in the overall Grand Prix thing. And we're going to find out come Monaco weekend. And maybe Monaco is probably not the weekend to find this out, just because it's Monaco. The weekend after Monaco, when we go racing again, is probably when we're going to find out if this compression ratio thing is a real thing or not. Because you are seeing the rise of the Mercedes-powered engines, or the Mercedes-powered teams, as you've seen them get around the new software. Those are kind of things that Mercedes now, here's the good news. If they start developing and they develop well, they already have the advantage. They're just trying to keep the advantage. It's harder to try to dig into that. So there's a couple things that I think could still happen, but at least for the start of the year, absolutely. My reaction to Piastri taking the lead was literally, I did one of these. I went, You go, boy. I think that was my exact reaction. As I pounded my chest and I went, there you go. Look at that. Yeah, if we can get out of the garage, look at what we can do. The other thing with him is he's had among both him and Lando, he's had the far better start to the year. He just hasn't been able to show it. So I do think he's gotten around this car a little bit better than Lando has. I mean, Lando's kind of coming to it, but I don't know that Lando is fully in love with these cars, kind of in the same way that Max is. I mean, he's been pretty critical of them kind of as well.
A lot of drivers have been very critical of them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, let's see, what else we got? Yeah, and Dave, obviously, I hope you're doing well. I apologize. Yeah, again, we apologize that this has taken so long to get out. That was all on me. Cody has had no issues. I'm the one with all the tech problems on this one, but I hope I've worked them out.
It happens. It's not the end of the world. The nice thing is there's 5 weeks to the next race. So whenever we get this episode out, it's going to be before we go to Miami. Thank you again, Dave, for your email. Our last one comes in from the Formula. Thank you, Mr. Formula. And he says, decent race. I will say I'm not thrilled with the TV direction for the season as a whole thus far. Have you watched the last couple seasons, man? Because this is a long-standing theme of our show here. Yeah, not thrilled with the TV direction for the season as a whole thus far, particularly with the lack of extended cuts to onboards. They're so brief and infrequent now. I'm presuming Liberty Media doesn't want that many onboards to avoid more criticism, but it still sucks. Finally, Kimi is really growing on me. He seems humble, kind, and gracious, all things that George used to be before he turned into a pompous corporate turd, with all due respect. I hope Kimi doesn't change as his successes pile up. Last note, if I'm not too late, last time I checked, no, we're still good. Formula One is at risk of losing Max, maybe even others. Best drivers want to express their talent in cars that are challenging to find the limit in. These cars don't currently offer that. If he leaves, F1 will immediately take a huge popularity hit. Wherever he goes will skyrocket in viewership. Now, I did make a prediction an episode or two ago that I thought that maybe we would be losing Max, Lewis, and Fernando at the end of the season. Now that we're seeing that Lewis Hamilton is doing much better in this Ferrari than he was last year, I think it's pretty good chance that if he wants to keep doing this, that Ferrari will be happy to have him. But, Fernando, shit car, new child, Max Verstappen, young child, shit car, interest in other racing, still could be 2 out of 3. I think maybe popularity will take a little bit of a hit, but for a little while. But I really think that the current cars and the way they run and the fact that the drivers don't particularly like them stands to do more damage to popularity than Max leaving the sport. Because, Max is probably one of, if not the most popular drivers in Formula One right now, but there's no shortage of popular drivers. You still got Lewis Hamilton. You've got Charles Leclerc, who I'm a pretty big fan of. You've got Pierre Gasly, who's having, a career renaissance. Alex Albon, who up until recently was having a career renaissance. Carlos Sainz, who's also widely popular and for good reason. So there's plenty of, driver personalities that'll keep people interested from that end of things. It's not like it's going to stop me from watching Formula One, even if my favorite driver leaves. I just really hope that he doesn't.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm with you on that. I want to see the best drivers in the best equipment going at it. I thought there was nothing about the entire thing last year that would convince me that wasn't the case. You saw the best go at it in the equipment that was to the limit. We kept saying, we think this rule set has solved the Pirelli tires. Tires weren't degrading. You could do 80 laps on them on a set of hard tires and nobody could do anything, and you could decide whether or not that was entertaining or not. So that it's a different flavor. We have to adapt and kind of get used to it. What I do think is just from what I've seen, the reaction is we're already having a summit. They're going to probably do some patchwork. I have a funny feeling that unless they want to get away from this 50-50 split thing, I think we're going to see these rules for 3 years, and I think they're going to fast track something else that's going to be a lot simpler and a lot quicker to get people back on board because they understand. They have to understand. They're too smart. There's too many smart people involved in the sport to not understand that they are on the precipice of potentially losing everything that they've managed to gain in the last 6 years. So that's point one. To your point about the race direction, I have a bit of a perspective that I can put to that. Part of the reason that they're not staying with the onboards is because, quite frankly, I don't know if it's this set of cars, if it's because there's more electrical energy, but something is mucking with the onboards. Because when I try to watch the onboards, they cut in farther out when like they turn them on when the car's already out of the pit lane, where before you used to watch them come out of the garages. There's certain parts of the track, especially in Japan, where the onboard didn't matter who you were listening, because I did it. I was one of the practices. I literally said, okay, is this just Lando's car or is this somebody else's? So I went and I flipped, and every time they came in and out of Spoon, particularly, the onboard would blip. F1 took a lot of crap over the course of this weekend for the Antonelli pole lap, and then they came out with a explanation that said, well, his onboard crapped out, and that's why we couldn't bring you the whole lap from the onboard. As much as I hate to give them a pass on something like that, I actually believe that, because it would crap out at Spoon and not pick up until it got back on a 130R. I totally believe that that's what happened. And because they don't have more than one transmitter, it's a shot where they either have it or they don't. If they lose it, they lose. It's gone. You can't rewind it and get it back. It's just kind of the way that the onboards work, because you can't rewind them, or you can't even direct them on F1 TV. So if we want to get the race direction better, where I would start is let's update the onboard technology so it works on all the places around the damn tracks, so they don't cut out like this. The other thing they have to...
You would think the Formula One would be able to figure that out.
Right. You'd hope. The other thing, and I've actually seen a tweet back from their help channel because somebody else complained about this. The radio needs to also come up to now go over this increased volume of the engine, because especially in some of those high-speed corners or what we would think is a high-speed corner, where the engine is whirring so much, you cannot hear the damn radio. So half the time I'm like, what did he say? But you can't go back and redo it. So it's really kind of annoying. So yes, there is a whole race direction thing that I think they have to get better at. I think they're still using their old historic systems. They could use an update, and I think the sooner they can get it, the better.
Lastly, on your point about Kimi Antonelli here, he is definitely growing on me as well. His victory in China was pretty heartwarming. And it's really clear from interviews with him and behind the scenes stuff with him that I mean this in a good way, it's clear to see that he is still a kid, which is, I mean, it's pretty amazing where he's at with how old he is, but it's pretty clear that he's still a kid. He's kind of goofy. He likes to prank around with his team and, people in the garage, and likes to joke and stuff like that. And he's kind of got a little bit of that innocence about him still that, kind of lose with some of the other drivers because they're just so cutthroat with their experience in the sport. And it's kind of refreshing to see that. So who knows if that's going to change as the competition gets more dire, or as he gets older and more experienced and perhaps a little more jaded. But for the moment, yeah, I agree with you. He seems like a really, really nice, just kind of friendly guy, and it's really easy to root for that kind of driver.
Yeah, no, he from all appearances, he looks like a very nice, genuine kid that's probably having the time of his life. And he hasn't been corporatized yet.
Yes.
It's kind of the same vibe that a lot of people had when Lando first started. And I do think as Lando's matured and gotten on later on in life, he's had to get more not sheltered, but more of a defense to questions, because he would let too many things in, and then people would use that to critique him. You haven't really had anything other than maybe the first practice session that Kimi Antonelli go out to really critique yet either. So he hasn't done anything to do that. He hasn't had to answer, in my opinion, yet a tough question. That if this championship evolves in this way and he is in contention come the last third of the season, you're going to see a change. It's going to go from, hey, I'm just happy to be here, nice bubbly kid, hey, look, I won a race, so that's great, to now there's a business of winning a championship involved, and oh, by the way, I probably have to beat my teammate who's our technically number one driver to do it. So enjoy it while it's here would be one of my advice to you. Because, yeah, I mean, there's nothing about Kimi that I don't like right now.
Agreed. Thank you guys very much for your emails. We're happy to receive them as always.
All right. So we will transition into our awards. We will start with the rubbish. Cody, I'll let you go first here. What you got?
The award is pretty much going to the Oliver Bearman crash and the fact that drivers had been warning us all along that this type of incident could occur with the difference in approach speed from one car recharging and another car deploying their electrical energy. So the drivers knew it could happen and that it could be dangerous. And now we've seen it actually occur. So there's a lot of drivers right now that are sitting there going, hey, we told you so. Maybe we should do something about it now. And I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, no, I mean, for my on track, I think that is a perfect rubbish. It shouldn't have taken a bruised knee or a horrible looking crash at 50G to finally make people understand that this is what we told you was going to happen. But my off track rubbish goes all the way back to the media day. And we have a friend of the show. We've interviewed him. He was nothing but honest, joyful, and respectful to us. A guy by the name of Giles Richards, who I think now works for The Guardian. Apparently, he's gotten in one Max Verstappen's crosshairs. Now, I didn't realize it was Giles that had asked the question after Abu Dhabi about, the 2 points and did the Spain thing really matter? And when I heard it at the time, I said, well, that's kind of a tropey question. I wouldn't really have asked it, but in the same
We
vein,
were all thinking it.
yeah, but that's exactly it. We were all thinking about that question, and somebody had to ask it. And I didn't mind Max's response at the time that he could be a little, churlish about it. That was okay. But to carry that grudge 6 months down the line, and Giles doesn't go to every race. This was the first race that he had been to this season, and to then decide to kick him out of the media session over this entire question, over that, and Giles, to his credit, I guess just gulped and left, is a bit much. Max, I respect your driving ability a ton, but this is why you have a press officer, dude. If this was really this type of thing, the press officer should have briefed you as to who was there, and maybe the press officer didn't. And if you had a legit beef with Giles about this, you should have just worked it out through the press officer. Giles is literally just there to do his job. He's trying to ask questions, to get a response, to write an article, to make money, and that's how he works. It's a little kind of crazy when we go beyond that. Now you're actually messing with somebody's job. So I didn't like that as a response. I thought it was a little over the line. Max, I respect you, but please, in the future, I hope he does better.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You said it pretty much perfectly, that this is his job. Like he's supposed to ask these kind of questions to generate, good responses and articles that they can ultimately sell. So he's just going in there and doing his job. And we were all thinking that, hey, I wonder what Max is thinking, because that was the one thing during the season that he had the most control over, that he fucked up. And those points could have really helped him there at the end of the championship. We were all thinking it. Like you said, someone had to ask it. And yeah, I can understand being frustrated in the moment. You just lost the championship by a very small margin. I'm sure he was probably thinking many times throughout the season, man, I was a little bit of a dumbass there. And he just doesn't want that out in the world. But I also agree that, carrying that until now, it's like, come on, like, we're all grown-ups here. We can move on. Like, you don't have to carry this grudge. It's a bit of a dick move.
Yeah, I mean, there's a drop of Max's that I hear that he goes, oh my God, this is very childish. That's kind of what I want to say back to him at this point. Like, I want to play your drop to you. But just don't be messing with our show's friends, But it was kind of interesting. We were texting back and forth when I didn't realize it was him until the next day when I saw kind of, because nobody in the media actually wanted to call Giles out because he's a made guy. He's a very respected journalist in the paddock. All of a sudden, the guy in the race says it, and I was half asleep when I was watching this recap because they recorded it, the same kind of hours that we record. And all of a sudden, I perked up and went, Giles? No. And then I
kind of did the same thing.
Phone.
I was like, isn't that the guy who we interviewed, whose book is sitting on my desk? Shit.
And oh, by the way, it's a great book. You should go read it.
He's
a phenomenal writer. He's a great storyteller. He loves his He was not trying to be disrespectful to Max in any way, shape, or form, other than asking kind of a tropey question. But the response did not warrant, the crime did not warrant that response. Enough said. Yes. All right, so we'll move on to our analysis paralysis. And honestly, on this one, I'll go first here. I don't really have one other than, God damn, that was a horribly timed safety car. I actually thought McLaren did what they should have done. I was screaming out, okay, if you're going to do this, you got to do it now. Got to do it right the fuck now. And they did that lap. And it just is a racing thing. It just didn't work out for them. So I can't give them an analysis paralysis, a one-stop race. Who do you call out? So I don't have.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on this for the analysis paralysis. I was really, really rooting for Piastri to get that win. And same as you, I was thinking like, oh, he's got a little bit of a gap. He's got a pit before George to get, to prevent the undercut. And he did it, and it pretty much worked. And I was like, holy shit, he's actually got a shot at winning this race against all the odds that we saw going into the weekend here. And yeah, when that safety car came out, my heart just sank because I looked at where Antonelli was and I was like, oh my God, he got so screwed. He and George both got screwed. So that was really too bad for them. That is just how it goes sometimes. Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder what could have been. And the broadcast totally jinxed it too, because they had literally just like a couple laps before had said some stat about how that we hadn't had a safety car past lap 9 in this race in like 15 years. And then, of course, like a couple laps go by and they get the safety car. And I was like, oh, well,
2026 regulations say hold my beer early. Ay. Well, yeah, sometimes you bite the bullet, sometimes the bullet bites you. But anyway, we'll move on to our dark horse of the day. I'm going to shout out Pierre Gasly once again because I think he is having a renaissance to his career. It's very much needed. It's a guy who's literally been scraping at the back, trying to figure out what his next move is. It's good to see him coming back, so I'll give it to Gasly here. Cody, what you got?
I'm actually going to put in Oscar Piastri for dark horse, mostly because I didn't even know if he was going to freaking start the race, much less get on the podium. And, we saw that McLaren had made some strides in China from the first race, but we didn't really think that they would, at least I didn't really think they would be strong enough to be in a position to potentially win the race. So yeah, the fact that Piastri managed to bring it home in second, I think is a very strong, good thing that we weren't really expecting. So it's perfect for the dark horse.
Yeah, well, fair enough. I will accept that. All right, so we'll move into our driver of the day. I am feeling the Oscar Piastri love from you, so that's where I'm going with this one. Oscar Piastri, even though he didn't get the win, I thought had the best drive of the day, given the circumstances, given the fact it was his first start, given the fact he really hadn't done his car really much in racing conditions other than, a short little sprint there. Figured out a lot of the deployment stuff, got on top of it. I thought he made the right call for the win. It was the aggressive call. It was the call you have to make the win. Just didn't work out for him. And even then, to still only be 13 seconds, when you look at the other finish, Lando Norris is 55 seconds behind the Mercedes in Australia. 55 to 13, that's a pretty big delta, man. So I'm impressed. Oscar Piastri, driver of the day. Cody, what you got?
Yep. Agree with you on this one. I suppose you could argue Kimi. He definitely looked to be the strongest in terms of pace throughout the whole weekend. Definitely between him and George had the stronger pace, but his win was made significantly easier by the timing of the safety car. I just think that the fact that Oscar was in a position to even think about winning puts him in driver of the day category. And yeah, he did everything that he had to do to put himself in that position, and it was just luck of the draw that took that away from him.
Yep, that's like I said, that's how it rolls sometimes. But all right, so that does it for our awards. We'll move on into predictions. And it's another kind of oddity of this race. We have a tie. So Cody, you finished the weekend with 3 points. You got the fastest lap driver for Kimi Antonelli. You got the fastest lap time. And you got the prop bet because the McLarens got out of the garage. I also finished with 3 points. I got the pole time. I was a little bit closer to that than you were. I got the fastest lap driver because, again, I had Antonelli for that. And I also got the prop bet because I said the McLarens would get out. So it is 2-0-1 we now have on our season standings so far. All right. Well, I'm also enthused. 35 straight minutes of recording and not a single problem. My engineering skills are working. Let's put it that way. You should see this rig. I don't know if we're going to have a video for this. How I have this thing rigged is Polish engineering at its finest. Let's just say that. Anyway, we're going to have to take a break. It's kind of sucks because I kind of really feel like now we're kind of into the groove of Formula One a little bit. And now we have to take a break. My hope over the break is that the situation in the Mideast, yes, I'm aware of what country we are in and I'm aware of how it started, gets resolved. One way or another, I hope cooler heads prevail and we get this stuff done and taken care of because dropping bombs on people just sucks all the way around. So I don't like to see
Amen to that.
Yes. So we can get back to doing fun stuff like racing. And so people can enjoy their racing and their fast laps again. So we will next be with you probably for the Miami Grand Prix in about 4 weeks' time. We will come out with a preview. I'm sure it will be news stacked. There's probably a ton of stuff that is going to break between now and then. I will do my best to keep on to social media and update that as I see it. The Energy Summit, I want to follow that. I want to get into that. We'll follow the Verstappen trail where that goes. What his thinking of is maybe just a break It's funny how these drivers kind of reset after a little break when they're not in the fire of everything, and suddenly they get back to doing what they do. But until then, Cody, any final thoughts till Miami?
No, just that I'm excited for when we get there. I've got plenty of life stuff to keep me distracted for 4 or 5 weeks until it comes back.
You got a trip to plan.
Yeah, I got a trip to plan, most of that is in place actually, which is fantastic. But yeah, it's gonna kind of sting a little because we're off for this. It's like 4 or 5 weeks. We're gonna do Miami, and we're off for another 3 weeks, and then the next race after Miami, which I think is Canada, is like the day. It's like I'm going to be like flying over the Pacific Ocean when that's going on. And then I'm going to be out of the country for 3 weeks, which is going to coincide with Monaco and Spain. So it's going to be really hard for me to watch Formula One after Miami for a few races, which, is just kind of how it goes sometimes. But, I really wish I just had my fix like right now.
Well, there will be highlights available. I'm sure there are ways to stay into it. I'm sure you will text me at odd times when you are in Japan, sir. Anyway, we are going to talk about Miami first and foremost. We will be back in a few weeks' time. Until then, everybody, take care of yourselves. Crazy world out there. Sometimes you have crazy nights when you try to podcast too. It happens. So anyway, stay safe. Crazy world. Take care of each other. May all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at OutlapF1 Podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.